you all for being here, and welcome, Riley Holloway.
Okay, so we're going to start on the wall back here, which is a wall I've titled Getting to Know Myself. And so this piece, Shook One, right here, was a style that kind of started all of this. And it's the reason everything's on wood, pretty much. It was my attempt to, I was in my sketchbook for a long time, for just about a year and a half. I wasn't focused on painting or trying to sell anything at all. I was just obsessed with the human figure. And a little bit of like philosophy went on in that. But with the Shook One piece, it was my attempt to actually take that sort of style, that scattered-brained and philosophy and anatomy and storytelling, and actually make a larger version of that. And so out of that came Shook One. And in the center there is my cousin Jamal. We call him JT. And at the time, he did not feel like taking the picture because it was pretty late. But he was a champ about it, and he did it. And it was his first time actually seeing it during the opening, and so it surprised him a good amount. And so from that, it moved on to this style here. And I was trying to really trying to understand, to figure out how to show the wood through the figure, to still show off the wood as part of the element of design. So one of the things here is this is one of the few pieces that's oil and charcoal. And so the oil, the cool thing about it, you know, matched with the charcoal is charcoal still has this flat sense, but then when you add that oil to it and the charcoal, the oil just has this really like feeling to it that I love. And so the premise behind this one was a challenge towards popular culture and sometimes how people are painted in popular culture. And so Made in America is kind of handled like one of my favorite TV shows, Martin's actual intro. And you know, so a lot of things that relate to popular culture. The number here, the 95A1140 is Tupac's number that he had on in his mugshot. You know, and so that one was just a charge of popular culture. This one here is Eddie Confetti. I met him in Dallas. He came by the studio and actually put this straight jacket on. So he put the straight jacket on. And I had no idea. I thought he had maybe a trick to get out of the straight jacket, but there was no trick. the only, I guess if there was a trick, was just effort. So this man sweat in the studio and rolled on the ground and tried to get this thing off. And I wanted to show that as best as I could here. And also just kind of, the red was to symbolize just performance in a sense. And this one here, we're actually going to get back to. We're going to cap the actual artist talk off with this, and there'll be an audio experience for this one and three of the other pieces too. So we'll get back to this one here. He passed away a couple years ago. And so this one titled Uncle Babe, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. That was one of his sayings he always had. You know, and it was as simple as a statement as he could make, but the way he would say it was powerful. You know, so this one has some differences from the other pieces. It's a little more dark, you know, the way the background is handled. Also, you know, the watch isn't painted in, you know, symbolism of being out of time. I was going to paint, you know, another charge of pop culture and paint Andy Warhol's cans here because he hoarded canned goods. That was one of the things he did. He was like into couponing and he just had canned goods like galore, you know. And my version of a halo, just faintly showing up. You know, so I wanted a lot of these elements to be extremely subtle, you know, and then he ended up popping out of that, so much so, it's almost like a glow. This here is Renzo. Renzo's a little spacey and very, very cool about it though. And I actually let Renzo tell you about himself.
My name is Renzo Pancorvo, and I am from Dallas, Texas. Yeah, no, childhood was good. Big skateboarder, punk kid, yeah. I got to travel a lot, which that was really cool. I got to go to a lot of like amazing places. I went to like Italy and like Spain and Costa Rica and, you know, Seattle, New York, and LA, and like now I'm just kind of trying to like revisit all those places again, but as an adult. The perfect example is like, I'm gonna be going to LA, but I'm gonna be staying at the same circus that I went to like as a kid, and like I want to compare like those, like if my memories serve like any good, like to see if it's still like the same kind of like feel that I get off of that play. But it's like, did we ever really grow up? Are we still just playing?
Alright, so that was Renzo talking about his childhood for a second. And he has this rebellious spark about him. One of the stories he talked about was, you know, throwing firecrackers in the river and things like that, around the river, not in the river. so Wildcat, and he still holds on to a lot of those childlike manners that was mentioned in there. And that was a choice for having the children kind of take over towards the end of the audio. So it's not just interviews, but it's still my trying to get my interpretation of the person in the audio and also in the piece, you know, for the viewer. This one here is Kenneth Lee. Kenneth is very, very laid back, but also very, very structured. You know, when you meet him, that contrast kind of catches you really fast. And this one has an audio experience too. I asked him about his parents. He said they were from Vietnam, and he kind of told the story of visiting Vietnam. So here we have that one.
Parents are from Vietnam. My dad's from Central Vietnam, born in Central Vietnam, Hue. And then he moved down to Saigon, which is the city, you know, South Vietnam, second biggest city. Yeah, I went back when I was 15.
So what did you think of when you went?
For the first week, I hated it because it was so like outlandish to me. Cause, you know, like never seen so many Asian people because I grew up in Plano. Also, I didn't like it. Like it's just the air is different. It smells weird. You know, it's a different atmosphere. Yeah, it was just like very strange to me. And then after that, we started in the north, and then we took a van towards the south. We stopped in like several locations, and then I started noticing like how beautiful it was, even though it was like so poor, you know, really poor. Yeah. So like it was a humbling experience. Yeah, it's like third world country, man. Like kids smoking cigarettes. Like I saw a man who had no eyes, no limbs, and he was just sitting on a park bench. Like he was like from, you know, like a war vet, you know, from the war, part of landmine victim. But yeah, I literally saw him like a stump, you know, it was crazy. But other than that, you know, it's like super beautiful.
All right, so that's Kenneth there, and if you realize while Kenneth's talking, every word is sort of placed. You know, Renzo is a little more scatterbrained, still organized, but a little different. He's a little more structured in space. This one here was one of the pieces that were painted a bit more quickly. You know, I wanted this like rough feeling to it. Also, I wanted it to have this this time of this sort of challenge to time, because this right here is Hyde, and one thing about Hyde is he sometimes grabs you as not from this world a little bit, and his artwork too, which I really enjoy. But one of the things here was some of them have a theme that go a little beyond the person, and so this one's about a time traveler, and at the time it was like, what would freak a person out from the past? Well, that would be a plane full of people flying through the sky. But also, you know, taking classical realism in a sense and pairing it with a completely different other style, almost like a sort of a pop style here, like painting, drawing a sticker here with pen and ink. And that's one of the benefits of working on wood too. You don't have that give like you do on canvas. And that's what I love, because at any point, I can switch a material, or I can switch a direction and not have to worry about the material, actually. And so, get around to this one. So Donnie Williams was one of my favorite subjects to paint, you know, during this exhibit. He shows up twice in the exhibit. My wife shows up more than twice, so she's also my favorite to paint. But this one here is simple story, just trying to capture Donnie again. You know, he's such an interesting person, you know, that when I painted the power piece in the center of Donnie, it's just like I have to paint one more. Because sometimes you feel like you learn something more about these people when you paint them, because you're literally looking for a way to separate, you know, not separate, but to tell their story. you know? And so it becomes not just about technique, you know, how I used to be so bent on. It becomes more about, okay, how can I do this person justice in a way, you know? And that helped add variety to the actual exhibit, I think. You know, it turned it from just a bunch of heads to a good amount of stories, you know? And come around to this one of my favorite people, Tafi. He's a rapper in Dallas, and extremely well with words. Also has this childlike manner to him. His philosophies are fairly simple, hence the 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, D. You know, he tells you keep it simple, but also, you know, to be aware. That's what his thing is. And he's somewhat a conspiracy theorist, so I kind of threw some things in there that kind of hinted at that to kind of further display, you know, his character. You know, also he has a glow about him, you know, kind of this golden boy glow. And so that's why the painting kind of stayed a bit monochromatic, you know, in that sense. Even in the flesh tones, it's a less color than I normally use, which is contrasted by this piece here, you know, sentiments. But and so his name is #Topic, and he makes sure that you understand his #Topic. And so he's very point on with things like that. And he's always into practice, so practicing his eye here, and just being free with this piece, you know, and just having fun with that piece. Because it always seems like the first thing he's doing is having fun after the fact that he's mastering his craft. So he has a good balance. And this one here is painted a lot more fast and loosely, and it's called Sentiments. I don't know this person personally, but she came through to a friend's place. He used to have these parties called The Swim, and it would be on every Sunday until the apartments got tired of it. And we set up a photo booth though one day, and she came through and she looked just like my aunt. And it just tripped me out so much. We lost my aunt back in 2006, and she looked just like my aunt. And so that hence the title Sentiments, you know. But here is like, my aunt was from the hood, but was one of those good souls there. And so sometimes you have those people like that, and so just one sentiment towards that is she was on the power line. But also this person is there to do good. She's in her scrubs and things like that, and she's, you know, even though she's aware, she's also focused and she's forward, and she just has this personality that seems very strong. You know, and what I love about wood is just like the ability that it just has this feeling about it. You know, when you come down into areas like this that have this unfinished quality to it, that I just love that you see in a lot of the pieces. You know. Moving on to this one, 40 and a Mule. This one was another charge of popular culture. 40 and a Mule is what slaves were promised, and you know, land and a mule. A lot of people feel that we didn't receive that, but they're also fighting over that. Not so much that, but the concept of wealth is actually what is going on here. And so you see points of interest. So like these points of interest, he has jewels on, and this is my version of a crown. And his point of interest is his mind, his intellect, you know, his awareness, and the other point of interest is the contact. You know, that sometimes you have to make contact a little bit. You know, be a little aggressive, but not too overbearing. But obviously here, this is a spat between people who know each other very well. And he's just trying to get them to wake up to the reality of, look at your surroundings, pretty much. And I think that's something that tells the story of popular culture now, today. You know, how people think of wealth. You know, especially the youth, how it's displayed to us, you know. And so I guess we can move to this inner wall. This inner wall is pretty much family. We're gonna try to squeeze around to this. This here is my wife, Kelsey here. And like quick study, just one night at it because I love her, I guess. And then next to her is a piece of my uncle, who I caught him sleeping, which he wouldn't have liked. So he never got the chance to see this piece. He's always okay after he's seen himself drawn. But if he sees just the picture, he's not happy that you did that. So the title of that one is Slumber, you know. And so and I did another piece with him with a mockingbird. And this exhibit, you know, every time I've drawn them with some kind of bird or animal or something. But this time I kind of left that out. Don't know why. It was just a feeling of I didn't need it this time. You know, he was enough. So, and around here, this one here is looking forward. And she doesn't usually have her hair in cornrows, so it was a rare moment that I got to capture and paint, you know. And that might be one we keep for home. I really like this one, maybe. And so, you know, the pairing of these two. So this one is an earlier piece than that one. This one was last year, but I wanted to keep them the same, so I shot it in the same spot, and pretty much use the same palette. I don't tend to use a lot of black in the flesh tones. This exhibit, I kind of jumped into that with a few pieces, and that was one of them. You know, and it kind of worked out. You know, it was tough balancing on it being a little too harsh, and but also trying to keep an elegance about it. So, you know, so that was a challenge for that piece. Around here, it's titled Halo. It's my wife again. And this one, when I painted this one, the thought was literally like, you know, wow, like she's a mother. And you know, like while you're becoming a father, you have a partner that's becoming a mother. You know, you kind of forget that those two things at the same time are a big deal. You know, so I wanted something that would capture that strength, and I think that one did. It's one of her most confident poses, I think. And the decoration in the back, I remember she was real big on my white background. She really liked that, and so I went that direction with it. And kind of kept the background monochromatic, kind of respect that. You know. And next to it is a portrait of my mother, and that's her in her infamous nightgowns. She always has a nightgown on. She just loves her nightgowns. And you know, she has this like very cute, like scruffy look. And I even call my daughter Scraggle Mom, and it's like I almost call my mom that now. You know, very, very interesting. But yeah, and I didn't add too much detail to her nightgown. It's like she has like 5 favorites, you know. So I kind of just left it blank and left it there. I figured that I captured that moment. She wanted to know where the picture came from, and I snuck the picture, but she was happy with the piece. It started in the very beginning of 2015, and I've just like gradually added to it. You know, it was just an oil painting in the beginning, and then I added charcoal, and then there's ink there, and just through time, through that year, I just really added to it, and you can see like, you know, what it's been through, the ideas that the things that it's almost become, you know, and I think that has a lot to do with people in general. You know, we're not unfinished, but we're constantly growing. You know, so that I thought was interesting, is that it still doesn't have a stopping point technically. That's what I find interesting about that. And this one is another one of my mother. Sometimes she has this very sneaky look, and I finally caught it. You know? I finally got it, and I think that's one of the reasons why that's her least favorite piece. It's her sneaky look, and she knows she has it. So, and we'll go to another one of my mom right here, and this one is titled My Mother. So this is the grand piece of my mother here. And so the way this one's handled, she has a lot of influence on, actually. You know, I still had added a little bit of my element of that unfinished quality, but that's sometimes a quality she gets on to me about, you know. And she was an artist too herself, and it gets a little competitive at times. But she always told me she loved my work with the palette knife. And so she always told that almost every time I see her with a new piece, she's like, you need to do work with a palette knife again. And so I took that on, and so, you know, the flesh, her portrait is handled the way that I normally handle my portraits. But then the palette knife added this really nice other texture that kind of just ate the rest of the figure in a really nice way. You know, and I feel like it was a nice balance between cold and warm and cool colors. You know, the unfinished quality wasn't too much, you know, so that played into the story of her wanting me to finish my work off a little bit more, which I'm open to. And I was open to it on this piece, and it happens to be, after a while of jumping from piece to piece, I keep coming back to this one as my favorite. And so this one here, my mother, is my favorite. And so for Mother's Day, I did her a smaller version of this, and she like really loved that, and she hung it already. So that turned out cool. And now we come down here. And this is a guy I really admire. just off of hard work in general. This is Tony Bennett, and he works at Fairmont in Dallas. I had a residency there for 3 months, and I got to know him somewhat well to the point where he would let me know some of his ambitions. But I would see him like working extremely hard, and a lot of the customers there who came in, and I really enjoyed this man. And they would send them, they would mail them cards, they would mail them gifts and things like that, just let them know Tony Bennett's the best. And he would always tell me, you need to go check out the reviews because you'll see my name like all the way down through 10 pages. I went and Tony Bennett's name was all the way down through 10 pages. And the reason why is Tony Bennett would go into the break room and look exhausted. Sometimes he would look sick. And then you're like, oh my God, I hope he's about to go home. And you go out there, he's out there just hustling and he's smiling as big as he can. You know, and it's like, that I always admired, and that got me through that point, because that was a pretty tough experience, that being my first residency and solo exhibition. But he told me that he was working on a book, and he needed to learn computers first, and he had a lot of unfinished a lot of unfinished ideas, and he didn't want this one to go unfinished. And the title of the book is Tony Bennett Guest Service Champion. And so to honor him, I titled the piece Tony Bennett Guest Service Champion. Also, at the hotel, at the residency, you had to donate a piece, and so now they have a giant Tony Bennett piece there that they have to hang to honor Tony Bennett for all the work that he's done there. So luckily I got to choose the piece that that went in. And this one here has audio as well. This here is my friend Garrett. He comes from sort of a harsh place, but you wouldn't know when you meet him because he's so goofy. And so we'll get into the audio with them, and then I'll talk about the approach to the piece, because this one's kind of different than the others.
I'm from LA. I was born and raised South Central, California.
But what made you want to get out of the hood like that?
Me?
Yeah.
It was real basic. I mean, it's the same thing as that, like with anything else, is that's why when I said earlier, I rock on the vibe.
Yeah.
If I catch a vibe, I just run with it, because I have been right so many times. So many times, like, off on the whim. It don't feel right, I'm gonna dip. I mean, these things have legit saved my life before.
Word.
Hey, yo, we should leave. Yo, we should leave.
Oh,
and then like, hey, we should get out of here. And I mean, I've said it before, and I said it many, many times. And the first few times, something bad happened every single time. And then we get calls a couple hours later. You know what I'm saying? And then, because it happened, I was at my friend's house, he had a party, and we all in the backyard, and I was like, yo, we should go. We didn't go. I mean, people got shot. And then helicopters started flying around, and then we just heard gunshots, pop, 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 pop. I mean, it was a regular thing, like we would leave.
Yeah.
Party's over, you know what I'm saying? And it was never us, like, so, I mean, that was the signal that the party was over. That's how we took it.
So that's him talking about
Parents are from Vietnam.
the experience of growing up in South Central, and having to have the worries that most of the friends that I've met from here haven't had to have. And so to know that he's gone through multiple stories like that, and came out as goofy and as lighthearted as he has, is very interesting to me. And the way he kind of goes about fear. So this is my best friend here. He was like my best man at my wedding. And so I got to know him really well, but the way he kind of goes about fear, he prepares for it more so than he runs from it. And you kind of find that out because he's been through multiple things through his life. Just growing up there where I almost grew up, Like when we took a road trip there, he found out that the cousin whose house he was dropping me off at, his grandmother lived right around the corner, walking distance. So we would have grew up in that same area, doing those same things. So it's kind of interesting to parallel in that life, And so we can come around to this one here. And this one is a piece titled Erica Oliver. And this piece here got into hunting art prize. And there's not many of the charcoal plus oil pieces like this on wood. I don't do too many of them often. Charcoal is just, sometimes can be a monster, trying to deal with it on that scale. But man, it always produces something like very, very elegant though. Has this quality to it. When that charcoal meets the oil again, it has something that just captures me. But I'm gonna revisit that style more often. But yeah, so Erica Oliver, she was gonna come by, but I guess she didn't make it. She usually likes to come by when her pieces are here. But yeah, so this one actually is JW's piece. So he has this one here. And the piece on the other side is Donnie Williams' Power. And that one, I guess we can walk around the house. So this one, besides my mother piece, and besides the self-portrait, is the other one I kind of go back and forth on being my favorite. It was gonna have the words progress at the bottom, but I felt like, cause I felt like that's what power is, that progress, to make progress. And so it was gonna be forward, he's facing forward, and there's something dominant about the way he's lit, the look that he has, everything. Also, kind of taking the shoulders and making them more of an abstract shape and kind of flattening that out actually made him feel much more larger than life. It kind of spread his shoulders out, and it gave me something decorative to go along with the power. And it also really, really showed off his sensibility for style and everything. I haven't met anyone like Donnie yet, who approaches his look the way that he does, or his life in general too, and a really great photographer. The wood pieces next to him are pretty much a story and concepts for later ideas. But there were pieces of wood found on my parents' property, and just trying to repurpose wood, and to the point and just have this collaborative effort with wood, not to like overpower the wood by adding too many design elements, but letting the wood be beautiful, which it can be at times. So that's something I'm gonna be exploring more of in the future. And the final piece here, which is the last piece that was painted here, is actually Cedric Huckabee. And it was interesting, what's interesting about this one was, not only was I approaching the figure like I would, I had to approach other figures the way he would, and he makes color choices that I don't. And so it's interesting kind of going through that and having a learning experience. And it's always cool paying people with mine, like that's always a fun thing to do. But this one I wanted it to be painted very, very loosely. I wanted more of it to be filled and not have that unfinished quality, but it still does in a way. I didn't get rid of it all the way, and it kind of gradually breaks down and becomes muddy and almost becomes just this one mass of a piece, is how I wanted it to feel. I wanted him to feel a little consumed by the two figures that he had next to him, because that's how they make you feel when you walk in and see them. They kind of like grab you and pull you in. And so for his, we have audio for his, and we'll finish on that note, the audio.
Cedric Huckabee. My name is Cedric Huckabee.
And this is titled Conversations on a Shaky Table, literally.
Okay, so what artist inspired you?
What artist inspired me?
Yeah, have you had any art or mentors?
Sure. So I think a number of I've had a number of inspiring artists. One of my early artists was a former teacher of mine named Ron Tomlinson and Jack Barnett. And I think those two artists were my first two sort of mentoring artists and artists who inspired me in terms of people who I knew directly. Before then, there were artists, that inspired me indirectly. For instance, Ernie Burns, the work, if you ever watch Good Time. But on Good Time, you see that work, that they attribute to JJ, and that's all work by Ernie Burns. And so I was inspired by those pieces as well. I used to draw with my dad when I was young, and we would just sit around and he would draw stuff that he knew how to draw, and I would redraw it, like, again and again. They were little studies. and I don't know where he learned. Seemed like something that might have come from some kind of formal drawing book or something. But I would sit around and draw them and redraw them, and then me and my brother would have
All right, so that's the people I've come to know. That's the walkthrough of it. We're gonna end on that note. I kind of wanted that one to fade off because the audio is not actually. I'm gonna add more, and I'll make it available on the website for more of the pieces for you guys to check out. We're working on getting the exhibit to travel, and so when it travels, we'll have that kind of setup for more of the pieces as well, because it turned out to sound very, very cool, I thought. So it's going to be an ongoing thing that I kind of add to some of my works as I go along, and try to find a way to make them better and a little more unique as I go on. But I thought it was a good way to like see why I paint these people, and let them tell you their story better than I can, at times. So yes, that's it.
I think we're going to take a few minutes. Anyone would like to ask Riley any questions? Anybody have any questions for him? Going once?
What was the most difficult piece?
Most difficult piece is actually that one, and it took the longest.
Which one?
So one of your
The
friends?
first one, yeah, one of my friends. It's very complex individual, so I paid more attention to certain objects. And and that background is much more elaborate and much more finished. I kind of tried to paint as much as I can around him. But he's balanced the interesting life, so I don't know if any of you noticed there's no legs to the chair he's sitting on. So yeah, so he's kind of goofy that way. Yes.
What's your process when you use charcoal with oil? Does the charcoal go over the oil?
Oh no, the oil ends up going around the charcoal. So what I do is usually a clear gesso, and I sand that down, and I'll stain the wood the color of the flesh that I want, and then I'll build on top of that with the charcoal, and then around that is the oil. And then when you touch that back up with the charcoal again, it kind of gives you this feeling that's very nice, very elegant. Just that powder meeting with oil is really cool, and it'll blend in together, all sorts of cool things.
What kind of a reaction do you get from your sitters? Do they like what they see when you finish?
Usually, and I usually work by photo, because having a kid kind of makes it tough to, that's how it goes. But I start with a photo, and I usually like keep them up to date on how it's going. Usually, or sometimes like Donnie's piece, I kept a secret for him, because I thought it came out very cool. I'm not sure if I sent him a picture of the study or not. I don't know if I did, but yeah.
Riley, you studied a little bit in Europe, right?
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that? Like maybe where that was and things you learned there?
Okay, so that's a really good question. That trip to Europe actually set the basis for the whole style. Actually, the way I light the figure is consistent with the way they light their figure and the way they taught us to light the figure. And so, I don't have a ceiling where I can put in, sunlight, but they showed me what lights I could use and how to kind of do that setup. And so the way that they light the figure, it just that's turning that switch on sometimes just gives this dramatic flair to it, the way you light the figure. And it kind of does a good amount of the work for you. And it's also using those shadow shapes is what you kind of use to get your likeness of the person. It's the structure of those shadow shapes. So that's how you take those shadow shapes and create the illusion of depth and feel and stuff like that. So they helped a lot, and I was known as the question guy, because I was like, we got 3 months here. Everybody every weekend was going to other parts. I was just like in the studio, like writing down, okay, how do you set up the lighting? Because they had a big emphasis on that, And so yeah, that's one of the big things I took away from there, and just confirmation that oh, I can do this. I can, have an art career. But, yeah.
You might want to say who the they is.
Oh, the Florence Academy of Art. There we go. There you go. Florence Academy of Art.
And how'd you get to the Florence Academy of Art?
An instructor showed me at Art Institute, actually, and I nerded out on it. And it was at a time where I was at Art Institute, and I was there for motion graphics, and I wasn't feeling too confident about that. I was still doing oil painting heavily, and I was trying to advocate to get a group to oil paint there. And the fumes and the fact that it's hard to get oil paint out of the carpet, I guess for good reasons, so they didn't, but I left. And I went to Italy for that 3-month stay, and that was confirmation. And I came back to find out what was possible, you know, to find other artists who were making a living. And so that's what I started out doing first, before I painted. Before, I was just doing anatomy in the sketchbooks. I was writing down what I wanted for myself, and I was using that to kind of get around and get people to teach me, actually, because they saw the time put in. And that's kind of all they needed to see sometimes, and they would put time in. So that was a big lesson that I hold on to this day. Yeah.
Is there a specific reason for your use of materials in certain subjects, like how some will have more charcoal, some will be more, you know, painted?
Yeah, and sometimes that's based after the photo, because I'll look at the person, I'll go through my photos, and I'll say, well, this feels more like the person, and it's usually the later photos. And so when I make that decision, it's like, well, okay, so what do I know about this person, and which would be the best way to approach it? So if I have elements in it where, like for Hyde's piece, for example, at Far Wall with the airplane, that's really mixed media, and decided after the photo that, okay, I want to add that plane there, and I want it to feel like a completely different element, like someone smacked that plane on there where it shouldn't be. And you know, the wood gives you that chance to like go ahead and do a pen and ink wash airplane with the oil painting, like that. And so, yeah, so that's how I kind of come about the process of which ones I want to have, charcoal or oil. But this, I wanted to really just be in the paint for this one. Like, that was a big thing, so that's why there's not too many charcoal pieces, you know. But yeah, any more questions?
So all of this took place in 2 years?
Yeah.
Quite amazing.
Yeah.
Quite amazing.
Yeah, of course, in 2 years, pretty much. Yeah.
So, when you start with these and you're going through the process, how do you personally define your finishing moment and say, this is done, this is ready?
Well, so if we take one of the more unfinished pieces, like Tony Bennett's here, you know, he had a lot of unfinished products, and that was a symbolism for that. But that type of piece will sit on the wall at that stage pretty much for about, that sat on the wall for about a month. You know, just kind of like I would go in and add an element, and I would go in and say, I mean, it kind of feels like, and then I'd add a bag and then another bag, and I was like, you know, and that's kind of how he approached things. He wasn't a stickler about it. He would just reattempt and he would reapproach. And so that's kind of what I wanted to do there. Also, a therapeutic thing, you know, I started it out with, you know, just wanting to scrub the paint on. And then in the morning, like, he looked like a totally different person when I started that. And then I was like, in the morning, I'll fix him. And so, like, in the morning, I luckily did, you know, fix him up and turn it into a good Tony Bennett piece, something he'd be proud of, you know, and he'd be happy that his smile is caught in there, because that's his smile dead on. But that's him tired. It's not his best smile, pretty much.
Thank you guys, everybody, for coming, and thank you. Please grab some food and refreshments in our room up there, and I think we'll go around with Betsy Price finalists as well upstairs. So thank you all. Thank you, Riley.